The civil rights movement. We've heard the voices.
I resisted the idea of being mistreated and pushed around because of my race.
It came as a great beacon light of hope.
We've seen the images of sit-ins, of bus boycotts, and marches for human rights.
In Selma, there is a lesson to be learned.
But there's an untold story. In 2016, Representative John Lewis talked about his rights being denied at a library in rural Alabama.
I had first gone there in 1956 when I was 16 years old with some of my brothers and sisters and cousins trying to get a library card. And we were told by the librarian that the library was for whites only and not for colors. So I never went back there until July 5th, 1998. For signing of my first book, Walking with the Wind. And hundreds of blacks and white citizens showed up and they gave me a library card.
The movement to bring equity to public libraries was underreported. Several years after the Little Rock Nine made their way past the National Guard into a white high school in Arkansas, the Tougaloo Nine staged a read-in at a library in Jackson, Mississippi. In the spring of 1961, they asked to check out a book. Instead, librarians called the police. They refused to leave and were soon arrested. Libraries and other public spaces were legally segregated until the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Still, the practice continued for decades in the South. Wayne A. Wiegand wrote the book, The Desegregation of Public Libraries in the Jim Crow South. He writes that demonstrations were tense and widespread, but are a blind spot in our history.
A whole bunch of kids across the South took it upon themselves, largely without older adult leadership. And because Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, Stokely Carmichael really weren't involved too much in desegregating public libraries, the national media didn't follow them.
50 years ago, the Black Caucus of the American Library Association was created to advocate for and invest in Black librarians and support staff. 2 years ago, the American Library Association issued an apology for decades of injustices that can help the nation's library community confront the ghosts of its past.
I think it's important to recognize the past, apologize for it, and then make corrections. But I think we also have to be honest about where we are right now.
We still have a lot of work to do. More specifically, just being able to say that the library profession becomes more diverse, like being able to go and see people of all races serving their communities.
Gains in the number of librarians of color have been meager. A 2017 American Library Association study found that nearly 87% of their members were white. A mere 4.4% were Black. Tanisha Phillips manages the Joel D. Valdez Library in Tucson. She says the Pima County Library System has 26 branches sprawled across 9,000 miles. She's one of only 2 Black librarians.
We want our community to see themselves in us when they enter into our spaces and feel connected to us and feel supported by us and vice versa. But if I'm a Black individual and I walk into this space and I look around at the people working in this space and none of them look like me, can I feel connected? Can I feel supported?
That's one reason Phillips created the Kindred program 3 years ago. It has 2 goals: to bring in more Black staff members to better represent the community, and to add events, programs, books, and other materials to enrich and diversify the collection.
We do know that a lot of libraries have certain collection development policies that make it difficult to buy diverse materials.
Beginning in the early 20th century, librarians were encouraged to purchase materials listed in the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature. But publications there were mainly from a white perspective. That framework still exists today. The Dewey Decimal System is the most widely used way to classify books around the world. Wiegand says it was developed to reflect white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant patriarchy.
That's kind of the system that the 20th century bequeathed to the 21st century. And it's got these systemic racist themes that persist and resist change.
Programs like Kindred seek to disrupt traditional library systems. The team curates book lists that center Black, Afro-Latinx, and LGBTQ+ characters, hosts events like one that empowered Black women to start businesses, and reaches out to communities through inclusive story times.
Across the country, when you meet cultural groups who reside outside the dominant cultures, ask them, what can a building do for them as a community center, and adjust to accommodate it?
And if the libraries aren't having materials that reflect that, then that's the disservice that we're doing to the community.
2 years ago, Kindred received a grant to start a One Book, One Community initiative. Readers discussed Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower.
We were able to purchase over 200 copies of the book and also purchase study guides and offer those to our community free of charge. That was their book to take.
Access to books and information is even more important now that the coronavirus has disrupted the way people gather. So Phillips and the Kindred team have transitioned their book discussions and curated lists online. But the mission remains the same.
I stand on other shoulders of Black librarians in other cities and other counties across time. And so I want to make them proud. This isn't a job, this is a calling to me. And in those moments to be meeting my calling and to be stepping into my greatness and what I am meant to do, there are no words. There are no words.